Wow, first Encanto and now this? Is Disney finally back to making great movies again? So Pixar's latest film, Turning Red, just came out, and the people are eating it. Most of the people are eating it up. Audiences are a little divided, which is fair considering this is a movie and people have opinions. But I'm here to tell you that this is one of the best movies Pixar has put out in years, solely because it doesn't feel like a Pixar movie. Now I know that may sound like nonsense, but the good news is the video isn't over yet, so I have plenty of time to explain. Turning Red is about a 13-year-old Chinese-Canadian girl living in Toronto, Canada in 2002. Only half of those details are important, but I just thought I'd paint you this hyper-specific picture for the heck of it. Her name is Mei Lin, and she likes boy bands and Tamagotchis and stickers, and is just trying to go through life being her dorky little self. But then one day, during an emotional outburst, she suddenly transforms into a giant red panda. She finds she can't help from transforming anytime she experiences strong emotions, and so has to figure out why this has been happening as well as how to stop it. Hey Pixar, can you think of a new idea? I know this has been talked to death before, but like, really? Again? Does the main character in all of your movies nowadays have to turn into some kind of creature? Can you really not come up with a new premise? So you've got a new pitch for me, Johnson. You're calling it Soul? Yes, sir. It's about a New York jazz musician who falls down a manhole and has to struggle with the concept of his own mortality. Wow, that's pretty heavy stuff, Johnson. So when does he turn into a cat? Sir, Huh? Yeah, you know, like a fluffy little cat. No, he doesn't, sir. Okay, so what is he? I guess just like a 40-something-year-old guy. What, the whole movie? Yeah, okay, we'll see about that. In my opinion, Pixar hasn't really made like a banger of a movie since Coco, and everything since then and a little before that has just felt kind of lifeless. Soul was actually like a super good movie for the first and last third, but then the dude turns into a cat, and then it just becomes like an entirely different, way less interesting movie for the whole middle. But even though Turning Red's core premise doesn't really stray that far away from what Pixar has been doing lately, it's the execution that I think really puts this movie above a lot of the rest. Now, there is some, like, controversy surrounding this movie that for some reason I'm gonna talk about. Long story short, some critic wrote a really ignorant review for this movie and said that the fact that it was about a Chinese-Canadian girl made it too limiting. He basically said that the movie was exhausting and too unrelatable because he, a white male person, wasn't in it and couldn't identify with anybody in the film. He couldn't see himself in the movie, and so he couldn't connect with any of the characters. Obviously, this is a terrible take, considering Pixar's past films have featured monsters, cars, and fish, some of the least relatable objects and creatures in existence. Hi, Danny from the future here. I was just editing the video, and I was looking for an image of a fish for that previous joke. And this fish image is attached to an article titled, "It's Official, Fish Feel Pain." So I just want to chime back in and say that if you're out there hurting a fish right now, stop it. And it's also like baffling to me that you as a movie reviewer can't connect to characters that aren't like you. Isn't that like your entire job? Isn't that your only job as a movie critic? To connect with characters in movies? And like, to not like this movie is entirely fine, and to not connect with the characters is also fine, but for it to be about like race and gender is like so dumb. You just like fail as a movie critic and as like a rational person if you can't put yourself in the shoes of people of different races and genders. But I've also been seeing a lot of people saying like, I didn't love this movie, but I recognized that it wasn't for me. Or like, this movie wasn't about me, but I found it to be great. But like, I would argue this movie's definitely made for everybody. Not everybody will enjoy it because, you know, that's how movies work. And obviously people who've grown up in Chinese-Canadian households are gonna relate to some aspects of this movie more than others. But like, any audience can enjoy or dislike this movie. Like, this is a pretty universally enjoyable film. I just don't think this movie is so densely steeped in, like, Chinese-Canadian culture that, like, not everybody can enjoy it, you know? Okay, finally on to my analysis. Look, I'll admit, at first the movie's, like, the spazziest thing ever. It comes in hot. Like, at first you're just kind of like, okay, movie, you gotta back up. And to be fair, that is like kind of the point, but I know that most negative reviews I've seen of this movie have talked about how they found the main character to be overly annoying, and I'd say that for like the first 5 minutes, that's pretty true. And I do think that's like a fair criticism. When the point of your character is that they're cringy and annoying, but in like a charming way, you can't really get mad when people just find them cringy and annoying. Like, it's a difficult character to pull off, and it's not gonna be for everybody, but it's also like entirely subjective. You know, like, I'm not gonna tell you whether you find Mei Lin annoying or charming. Like, that's gonna be something that people personally decide on their own. Personally though, I think it's pulled off very well. Mei Lin's super dorky, and she and her friends behave exactly like you'd expect boy band loving teens in 2002 to act. I found her really endearing once she finally stopped screaming at me via narration. I was like the boy version of her growing up, but instead of listening to boy bands and wearing vibrant colors, I listened to Linkin Park and wore black shirts with dragon skeletons on them. So I was like just as cringy as her growing up, but like in the way that like her and I would have been natural enemies in 8th grade. So when the movie started, that side of me kind of kicked in, and I was like, man, what a poser normie conformist. This girl loves her parents. Get bent. Once you're finally past the 10-minute mark and you're settling into the world and getting acclimated to the characters, the movie reveals itself to be the most mature, relatable, and creative Pixar film in years. To me, Pixar's kind of been feeling like an 80s rock band that doesn't really know how to recapture the magic of its glory days. None of their recent movies have been, like, bad, except for Finding Dory and the Cars films. Like, all the movies have at least been, like, pretty good, but Pixar used to make legendary, unforgettable films. But lately, it just feels like they've been working off some sort of formula that's sort of just been wearing thin. They're either making sequels to movies that never needed them, or original movies that didn't feel all that original. That is, until Turning Red. This movie has so much energy, like genuine energy, and it feels so passionate from beginning to end, because it doesn't feel like just another Pixar movie. The animation style is different, incorporating anime influences and leaning away from the more photorealistic look Pixar's been pushing lately. The movie is hyper-stylized rather than hyper-realistic, and it allows the film to have more visual freedom and creativity than past Pixar films. It also leads to, like, objectively the hypest ending in any Pixar movie ever. Even though the premise isn't anything groundbreaking, the story feels personal without feeling like Pixar's just trying to get you to cry for no reason. On top of that, this feels like the most grounded movie Pixar has ever made. Okay, this next part of the review is gonna be a little weird because it's gonna seem like I'm saying the movie said crap and tampons and that's why it's good. And it's gonna seem like I'm saying that because that is what I'm saying. But for some reason, the fact that this movie had its main character, like, say crap a couple times and, like, the mom brings up tampons and drugs and alcohol, like, made this movie feel so relatable. And not that it wouldn't have been relatable without these things. Like, I've enjoyed countless animated films that don't discuss feminine pads. But it was so refreshing to know that this was like a more realistic world, and it made the movie feel just like a little bit more mature. Like, there's a part in the movie where the mom is like grilling the 17-year-old at a convenience store, and she's like, you see, this is what happens when you waste away your life doing drugs and alcohol. And I was like, oh my god, there's like crack in this universe. You know, it's like the characters are saying things that like we've heard our parents say when we were kids, and it just like helps add to that relatability. It just makes Mei Lin's situation feel all the more relatable when her mom's showing up to her school with like a box of maxi pads, you know? It made the secondhand embarrassment of the scene all the more effective, and it was also just cool knowing that like this movie about a teenage girl growing up through the most embarrassing years of her life didn't ignore some of what teenage girls are often embarrassed of, you know? Again, it just adds to the relatability and maturity of the movie because it's not ignoring these topics. The characters and their problems feel so developed because the movie never really loses sight of what it's about. The embarrassing trials of growing up in middle school. It feels consistent and passionate from beginning to end. It feels like Pixar finally made a movie because they had a story they were passionate about telling, rather than just making a movie that's supposed to make you cry because well, they gotta make money somehow. I really hope more Pixar movies follow in this one's footsteps by getting more creative with the art style and telling stories that are genuinely personal. That being said, the upcoming Buzz Lightyear movie looks like a freaking Gears of War film, and I could not be any more hyped about it. I know I didn't really dig, like, specifically into the plot or, like, the characters and stuff like that, but that's because I kind of just wanted to talk about how this movie sets itself apart from previous Pixar movies. You know, I just kind of want to analyze what makes this movie feel so much more genuine than what Pixar has been releasing lately. And it is that relatability, it is that freedom of a new art style. I want Pixar movies to get even more creative with their animation, take more inspiration from different art styles, distance themselves from the usual Pixar look. Because this film feels like Pixar is finally once again dipping their toes into being something truly creative and original. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure you like and subscribe for more reviews or reactions, gameplay, and just whatever I feel like doing on any given day. Have you seen Turning Red yet? Did you like it? Tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. Also, let me know in the comments what other topics you'd like me to discuss. Movies, games, books, whatever. And I will see you guys next time.
I think we go together like wool sweaters and hot weather. You don't know, and you would think that I would just be dying for you, and I just don't know.